This event was very small, so rather than just not do a video, I decided to do a video and then also a little add-on to it.
That's it. That's my intro.
Hi, I'm Amanda. You're watching Swell Entertainment, and today we are talking about MGS Con 2, or Metal Gear Solid Club, or Memes, Jeans, and Snakes, a Metal Gear fan con. Now, why did I go to a Metal Gear Solid convention? It's my job. Also, Matara Kan from V Shoujo actually was a donor to it. She was one of their backers to get it to happen and could not go. So she gave me her pass. She said, "You can go." And I said, "Sure." So that's why I went. She was a backer, but I got one of the attendee ones. I think she was one of the bosses. I don't know. It's a whole thing. Like I said in the opening, the con itself is very small. I did not stay the full day because I felt I got what I needed. And so I felt like what would be a really good idea for this video as well is to also expand on this and do a little how-to and talk a little bit about what you might want to consider when you are thinking about starting up doing a fan convention. All right. So I think this is a good little event for this because this is a fan convention that is in its second year. When I mentioned that I was at a Metal Gear Solid Con, the amount of people that were like, "Why did you not tell me that was a thing?" This might be very big next year. They did sell out for this year. They may need to expand to a bigger venue, a bigger event next year because of the demand. We'll see. But we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of different things. I had no prior knowledge prior to going to the con, all right? I have never played Metal Gear Solid. I know nothing about Metal Gear Solid. Zero, zilch, nada, nothing. If you ask me to pick out a character from a cosplay, I can't do it. That's really my ideal way of reviewing events, though, because then I can just review it as it is. I'm not going to be like, well, so-and-so's not here. So, therefore, it's bad because I didn't get the autograph I wanted. No. None of that. Because my name was added to the list, I never actually was on the Eventbrite ticket, and I was not backing it on Kickstarter, so I never got any updates from the con itself. So I had to park at the courthouse, and that's the kind of thing with this. It's like, I have been added to the list, but I have gotten no correspondence for this event, so I assumed this was in an email, and I just didn't get that email. So now I'm walking to the hotel where the event is. It was in Long Beach. It was a hotel not far from the Long Beach Convention Center. The Long Beach Convention Center is very large. I know it is very expensive. I don't know how outside of the realm of normal it is for other con spaces, frankly. That is one thing that I feel like I probably should get better at, is understanding the cost of these convention spaces for rentals. I usually just know, like, when they, like Pasadena, it's easy because they break up 3 different buildings. So it's like, okay, obviously the cost is going to get higher when you're using more of the buildings and such. But the Long Beach Convention Center is very large, so I know it's not cheap. They were at a hotel down the street from there on the 2nd floor. Now, the thing about hotels as well, I'm assuming this was in the email, I pulled up thinking that there would be parking that I could use there. There was, but only if you were staying at the hotel. So then they said, okay, you have to go park at the courthouse, which was on the other side of the block, about a block back. So a little bit of a trek, nothing too crazy, but a bit of a trek. Okay, I'm assuming that was in the emails. I am giving them a lot of benefit of the doubt, okay, because I just have no frame of reference. Go up this escalator and get in line for getting my badge. So there was 2 lines. There was Eventbrite and then Kickstarter. Now, they did check bags. They did have wand metal detectors. That is what I want to see. That's great, okay? This did take a very long time because there is one way in and one way out of this con. Now, this is a hotel convention, which, funny enough, is also what TanaCon was. Very familiar with this type of con. So was a furry convention I went to last year. There's plenty of hotel cons. I did see on Twitter just now, because I wanted to check to see if there's any complaints on Twitter, that because of the attempted assassination of a former president, that's all I'm going to say on that, the hotel requested that no guns or replica guns were in the con. So they did post, like, no cosplay weapons of any kind when it comes to that. A lot of people had swords and such, and I do think some people had. I saw 1 or 2. I don't know how well this was enforced. They posted it. Some people were like, oh, I'm going to bring a banana. I don't know how many people did bring a banana. I have to check the footage. So the line is very long, goes all the way wrapped through the hallway, through the 2nd floor, all the way down to the pool area where there are actual guests from the hotel staying and hanging out by the pool. It was about 35, 40 minutes, honestly, in line for registration from when I got in. Good, solid, fine. I accept it. I expect a line, especially, again, 1 in, 1 out, 2 people checking bags and doing metal detectors. Very small con. It's a hallway. 2 rooms. That's it. There is 1 panel room. There is 1 exhibit room. There is a hallway that has a couple more tables in it. They had a charity association with the Wounded Warriors. They also had a game room where they were streaming gameplay, and you could, I think, play games on the back the entire time. On Twitch, they were streaming. And then the little artist alley / exhibit hall that was very small, just 1 room. Again, this is a very small fan con, so I want to keep reiterating that. When I say it's small, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just noting the reality of the con itself. Got stopped a couple of times. You guys are so sweet. You really are. I know you guys, I say this every time. I think the lines are getting blurred because I do love anime. I do love motorsports, and I've been doing a lot of anime and motorsport related videos lately, so I think the line gets blurred. But I also understand, the desire that like a creator that you likes the same things you do, and it's so devastating in the moment when I see your eyes light up because you're super hopeful. I'm a giant Metal Gear Solid fan, and I have to tell you, not even a little bit. I see the light leave your eyes, and I'm sorry I have to be the one to do that to you, but would you rather I lie? Really ask yourselves, would you rather I just lie? Sorry, it just happened a lot, so I want to make the note of it again. I wandered around a little bit, just kind of trying to get the lay of things. It did get kind of cramped, but nothing too crazy, I would say. Oh, they also had a signing room with all the autograph signings and all of that for voice actors and such, and people that have worked on the games and such. When it's a fan convention, that's pretty common, where it's like a little bit of panels, some vending, mostly it is autographs. The thing with hotel cons as well, I always think there should be some form of food option inside your con. There was a hotel restaurant, okay, that I went and had some very nice French onion soup there. Side note, is it possible to eat too much French onion soup? Because I feel like I've had it a lot in the last month or so. Is that bad? Am I gonna die? Let me know, comment down below. 2, I just think it's good because especially if that line hadn't gotten lower ever and it was just always like a perpetual like recycling of people and that crowd is getting long, having a food option upstairs in your con, whether it's a local person from a bakery selling cookies or something, or you've got a popcorn stand or something, or you've got, a sponsor providing food or something. I don't know. It doesn't need to be anything crazy. It could be someone selling chips and crackers. I don't think it necessarily needs to be free, but the food option for payment, I think, should be available at the very least in case people don't want to go downstairs. My hands are 2 different colors. Unrelated. Sorry. Sometimes I realize how much sun I get when I'm driving, and then I'm like, I think a food option of some sort in the area of the event is a good idea. They did have plenty of water. They had a water station that was pretty much always well stocked. I do appreciate that as well, especially in the summer. It is so hot in LA. And in Long Beach, because we're by the beach, it's a little cooler, but it's still very hot. Even some of the rooms there, I wore a long sleeve shirt because usually with indoor cons, I usually choose something long sleeve just because they usually crank AC in those things because of the heat of a lot of people in one room. That panel room was very cold. The first thing that I missed because it started early was the opening statements. Missed that entirely. The thing that I walked in on and sat on for a little bit was cosplay build panel featuring Ruby Talk at 11:30. That was supposed to go till 12. Then 12 on the dot. This is where I always think you got to have some buffer room. Some buffer room is always very good, especially in a smaller con like this, especially if you're uncomfortable with cutting people off. Buffer room for yourself in the schedule. Like, for example, instead of starting at 12, it starts at 12:10, but then you cut them off at 12:10. I think also just having a never-ending time, because it just says 11:30, that doesn't, but then you would assume it would be done at 12 because the next panel is starting at 12. Having a time slot, I think, is a move. They did do that for a couple things, like trivia panel 1:45 to 2 p.m., etc., 2:45 to 12 to 3 p.m., etc. But they didn't really do that for the other panels. So that cosplay build panel ended up going over by about 10 minutes, closer to 12. They did come up and say something at one point, and then they just kind of kept going. And at that point, you have to be comfortable with telling your people, hey, you've got a 5-minute warning. And then once you give that 5-minute warning, once the time is up, you get a mic. Thank you all so much for coming out today. Thank you so much. Isn't this a great panel? Fantastic. So up next, you gotta, I know it sucks, I know it's cringy, someone's gonna be annoyed and frustrated, but you gave them a warning, and that's why you give them a warning. I didn't see you give them a warning, but I could have missed that when I came in, because I came in not long before 12. So it could be that I just missed the warning. My understanding with how this con is run and who is running it is that this is all very much a labor of love. Fans are running this con, which is good and bad. Bad because you need someone to be able to be an asshole. You need someone to get things done. Not to say that none of you that you guys weren't capable of or anything like that, but you need someone who is fine with the people that you love and adore and are fans of being upset with you and being maybe a little perturbed. And I think when it's a fan convention, that's a little harder to ask people to do, okay? Because the last thing you want is to have someone that you admire upset with you, even if you're just doing your job. Having someone who's maybe not a fan that is just there to like be the dickhead on site might be the move going forward. But then that meant that the voice actor panel started late, and then the voice actor panel ran late. The voice actor panel was supposed to start at 12. It ended up starting about 20 minutes late because not only did the panel go over, they then had to take all their gear off, and then they had to get all the panelists on stage for the voice actors. And that was that. Also, side note, they had couches on the stage. That's where they were sitting. They didn't really have chairs. They had couches and then tables in front of them with mics. If you're going to do couches so that you don't have it where it looks like the head is sticking up over the table like this, you move the tables and you leave the couches. Give them handheld mics. Now, handheld mics are not always an option, but mics of some sort that aren't, on a table or different chairs. Yes, the couch is more comfortable, but different chairs is going to be much easier to deal with heights and framing, especially when it looked like you were filming this, I think streaming this as well. In some instances, you would have one person sitting, one of the voice actors said that they were literally sitting on a pillow to, I don't think it was just to be taller. I think it was just to be taller than like the guy on her couch, and then the other one is like slouched down a little bit, leaning into the couch, and then like this. And it's like, also on a couch, it's harder to get people to sit up straight and actually like be engaged because you're comfy. You want to relax. You don't even realize that you're like leaning back and being out of view a little bit. So just something to note. Move the tables. It also, when there's nothing to hide behind, it makes people sit up a little bit more, actually, just subconsciously. So just a good little note. Like for the panelists as well, the ones that are now going late, they have every right to decide, I'm not going to go over my time. I was told I was here for this time and I have to do X, Y, and Z. At one point, one of the panelists, one of the voice actors was like, we actually already did this scene in the opening or on the stream or something like that. This is very long. In the interest of time, should we do the next one? And did that at least once or twice and like kind of went back and forth with the moderator for that panel, which I don't think is a good position to put your people in. I know it's exciting, but like, I think the assumption is like, oh, we're behind schedule. It's fine. And it's like, yeah, it's fine for you. It's fine for attendees. A convention is a group project, even in a fan convention setting. And it is a group project as well that also affects the talent that you have there as well. Okay. And it's like, oh, well, they're here for the whole day. Yes, but they're also here to do autographs. Autographs do take a lot of time. Autographs, signings, photos, all that. So it's like the set amount of time that we agreed to for the panel. And then I immediately have to go and do this versus having that initial buffer time to like collect myself, calm down a little bit, get ready for autographs and photos, etc. It's a little inconsiderate, just a little bit. All right. So it's just something to note. Like, don't just think about, well, it's fine if we're over because of X. It's like, well, is everyone involved fine with being over a little bit?
Based on my long distance recon, MGS Con 1 seemed like fun. This time, it's not a solo mission. Let's infiltrate this Long Beach tanker together. And you can just ignore the whole big shell thing. That place was just for riding my skateboard.
That ended and people immediately fled there. So I ended up doing another lap, peeping into the autograph section, which I think someone in line, like I think I saw them physically freeze, like, is she cutting? But I also, I didn't. I just went to did a quick little film clip and then left. No one stopped me. I wasn't trying to get in line or anything, but if I had, would you have stopped me? That's just something to know. And then there was the trivia panel. I tried walking into the trivia panel. I don't know if anyone stayed in the trivia panel because I did go to lunch after that. I was like, let me go eat something. And then while everyone is in line for the autograph section, the autograph is definitely the biggest draw. So a lot of people were in line for that a lot. A lot of the vendors, I was told, were selling out of stuff very quickly in the little artist alley they had, which is nice. So a lot of stuff was already sold out. So again, fan conventions are also really good for if you have any fan art associated with very specific fandoms or games, etc. Because especially if it's like a lesser known fandom, then they are so desperate for fan art that in a artist alley, they are more likely to buy a lot. I think, but by the time I left around 2, like someone had already sold out of a good chunk of their stuff and like their table was mostly empty. So I don't know if that was the case for everyone after I left, but just something to note, quite a few people. The trivia panel, I don't know. I heard someone down at the bar say that like, oh yeah, after that, everyone cleared out of that room. Like obviously the voice actors are one of the bigger draws for this as well. So a lot of people cleared out for trivia panel. I don't know how many people stayed in trivia panel. I was not there. And then I was like, are you still behind schedule? The voice actor 2 panel started about 5 minutes late. Great, you have the buffer time, so it's not terribly late. But it's just something to know where I'm like, again, late when there's no one on, because there was no one in the trivia room by the time I got up there, and it's the same room. Then they did a Mega 64 panel, did not go to the artist panel that was just artists that didn't, obviously I wasn't there. The Kojima frequency panel, cosplay contest, live performance, and Fingers DJ set. The game room was open from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and then the floor map and all of that. The floor map makes it look like a much bigger con than it is. Totally fine. July 19th on Friday, they did have a pre-registration and then a Long Beach Hilton Pool MGS Mingle night from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. So obviously I was not there. So let's talk a little bit more about fan conventions as a whole. Like I said, there was a Kickstarter involved and then an Eventbrite. So our 2024 supporters, thank you for these amazing fans who made MGS Con a 2024 reality. Matara Kan for generously pledging $7,453 to Kickstarter. So shout out Matara. I'm not understanding if staff was volunteers. My assumption would be yes, based on what I am seeing. And that is very normal for a fan con to be mostly volunteer run. It's not necessarily a non-profit necessarily. Sometimes what I've heard is that on the back end, they kind of give people bonuses as like, thank you for helping, but they go in with the assumption of being volunteers. I do think that once things start getting bigger, not to say that they are not, I don't know for certain, but when you are doing a first-time fan con, it's totally understandable to do mostly volunteer run staff. Definitely have some form of an agreement, in my opinion, especially for people that are working something, especially just because having an agreement of some sort, because yes, you want to be like, oh, we're all fans, we're all friends, it's great. Having an agreement of some sort, I think is good because it just kind of makes people actually want to help and do the job because you're like more committed to it, even if it's just something of like, I am committing to volunteering and working this event for X amount of hours in exchange for free attendance or something like that. It doesn't need to be like a ironclad NDA document or anything like that, but I just think something that's like a little bit more concrete so that if they're like, well, I don't want to do that because of X, I want to see this panel. It's like, well, I'm sorry, you got to do X, Y, and Z first before you can do panels and such. Just because as someone who has helped put on events and been to many events with a lot of bad volunteers, and it's always adults. I'm sorry, adults are the worst volunteers for cons. Like young teenagers and college students are the best volunteers, okay? Because they're like, I'm not even talking like they're looking for college credit or anything like that. They just like are so, they're dedicated. They want to help. They want to do a good job. I'm realizing this low-key sounds like I'm advocating for child labor. I'm not. And also, I think you should always feed your volunteers. And then you've got adults who are just sometimes awful. So just having some form of an agreement in place, I think is, the best course of action. And then funding it like this with it where it's a Kickstarter, as long as you follow through with the event and you follow through with the Kickstarter bonuses, fantastic. This is perfectly well done. I have not seen anyone say like, they even have a thing for the Q&A where it's like, I don't know how to get my rewards. Like that's fantastic. Okay. Great way to do it. Kickstarters are a good way to do it. And then also like if you're worried about not being able to get over the amount, you've got someone like Matara, because if you're doing a fan run thing, there's probably someone who's like a bigger creator or someone who's a whale investor, if you will, in the fandom that will, want to see this happen, even if they can't come themselves like Matara did. Security, you have to have it at your fan con, okay? I had talks with a creator a while ago. I do consulting for events now here and there, and I talked to a creator who wanted to put on an event. And when I tell you he didn't even consider about security, I was like, here is why you have security. I'll tell you exactly what I told him. Especially if you are, whether you're a creator or a fan putting it on and you are putting on the con, you cannot hope that you and the other people you are working with are able to run around constantly. And then also with security, yes, it is an added cost. I'm not even just talking about bag checks. I'm just talking about having someone there whose whole job it is to keep peace and keep things safe, okay? And to just be making sure people are being safe. One, if you have any form of talent, in this case, it was voice actors and the like, coming in, then you need security for them to make sure they at the very least feel safe. And at the worst case, step in if some fan gets out of control. I have said this before. I have some fans that get a little touchy with me. It's usually very mild. It's just like casual, like not understanding personal boundaries and things like that. But even then, you don't want to put them in that position, okay? Especially when people are fans of someone, sometimes it's an involuntary response. They just get a little overexcited. And to have a security guard who can step in is important, okay? And then also bag checks, things like that, especially when you're dealing with something like Metal Gear Solid where there are fictitious weapons involved that look like a lot of real weapons sometimes. Having security and bag checks and all of that is a good move. It takes one person with bad intentions. That's really it. That's all it takes to turn your fun fan con into a travesty. What else? Food, something, chips, something, even just, something that's like you just have someone else, one of the volunteers selling things. And maybe that would have been a good way to like donate to, the Wounded Warrior Project. It's another way to, you don't even need to profit off of that or anything like that. It's like, hey, once we earn back the cost of the snacks, that we're donating the rest of the funds. Do you want chips? Do you want snacks? We got breakfast burritos from Costco, we got pizza from Costco, something. The water on site, fantastic. Always have water. Even for an indoor con, have water. If you are not emailing people to be like, hey, bring your own water bottles, we have a refillable water section. I have seen that done before as well. Game section, good. Streaming, something fun, little interactive, couple of photo spots, things like that. That's always good. I always think of having a spot where it is literally just, whether it's, MGS Con had like a little backdrop that was like MGS Con, like a step and repeat of sorts, just to have a photo spot where people can get photos of their cosplays if you have a cosplay-based convention. Fantastic, okay? Especially because then every time they post that, that's a little bit more advertising for your con for the future. And you can feature them on your page with tags and things like that, tag accordingly, but still, usually fans are really cool with that because they get to like, you're showing off their cosplays and stuff. That's a really good start. I do think, again, keeping a very small, simple, even if it's a 1 day, a 2 day, a very simple schedule, fantastic, good, dandy. Have some buffer room. You'll thank me later, all right? For everything, even first thing in the morning. Do not put anything important before noon. At noon is questionable, but before noon, no. Not within the first hour and a half of the con opening or starting, because like I said, you could end up in that long line of getting checked in. Obviously with a 1 day event, anything early because everyone's going to come at one time. It's not like with a multi-day event where like some people come on 1 day, some people come on other, some people come at 2 p.m., some people come at 9 a.m. Because it's all in 1 day, you have to assume that everyone's going to show up at the same time is the assumption you got to make. So multiple lines / buffer time for like important panels and things like that. They did come around at one point and say, did you have a photo op? Did you have a meet and greet or whatever with certain people at certain times? Because there was the schedule. Paul Eiding was 11 a.m. to 11:15. Phil Lamar, 11:15 to 11:30. Anyone who had one of those were pulled out of line. But that's extra work for yourselves. That's more stress on the crowd. And then you run the risk of people also just lying, being like, I have that, and then they don't, but it's like you're already inside. Cosplay contests are always good. Something gets excited. If you're wanting people to cosplay, a cosplay contest is a really good way just to get people to cosplay. Math is always good. Advertising your sponsors, all right? I do think for at least some of the tiers, maybe they could have had their name somewhere on here. That would have been good. But it sounds like you sold out of the event fairly early, so you had time to do this, is all I'm saying. And I think a full day event is good, but I also think there's nothing wrong with cutting it a little early for a first time event, especially if you're just trying it out. This went till 8 p.m. For the live performances and all of that. I did not stay, like I said, but I don't think there's anything wrong with cutting it a little bit early as a trial run, or even starting at 1 and going till 5 or 7 even, all right? I don't think you need to do a 10, 11 a.m. start time. Oh, for fan events, if you were trying to move forward in the future and not necessarily do backing, but then do like actually getting sponsors. A really great way to do this is obviously having things around that encourages people to take photos and post to social media with like a hashtag or whatever. If you have spots where it's like, oh, meet me at next year or something like that, and advertising that, then you just have marketing photos for pitch decks and things like that at the very least internally, maybe not publicly, but internally you have something. They had photographers walking around, which is good. I assume that's to hopefully try and get more sponsors in the future. Even with the fan con, I think you need an HR person. Like just someone that's off to the side, that's not involved in planning aside from being a grievance person, okay? And that is their whole job. I'm not even kidding. The fan that becomes organizers that want to, that are getting frustrated or whatever because I'm not even getting paid, why am I doing all this or whatever, and having someone that's like a designated, talking person. It sounds stupid, but trust me, you would be shocked how many things I've seen fall apart because people weren't communicating and then there was no one, the resentment builds up and then there's no one to communicate to, or even someone makes a complaint against an organizer. You want someone who is not another organizer because if there's ever any issues and they need to talk to someone, having someone whose job it is to just deal with these complaints as well from attendees is good. Do not sell tickets before you get a venue. I've said this before. I've said it. I'll say it again. Do not sell tickets before you get a venue. Your first order of business should be checking with people to be like, hey, we're doing this. We would love to have you come. If you're at all interested, we will have more information shortly, but you are not selling tickets until you have a venue. You cannot oversell to capacity. TanaCon did this. Many events do this, surprisingly. Still, double check the occupancy because you may have come to this convention 2 years ago, and since then they've rezoned, and now the occupancy is less. You never know. Just double check that. Don't sell it to overcapacity, etc. Be realistic about the popularity of a certain panel. Obviously, the voice actor panels are one of the more popular ones, so that room was fairly full. It was not full to the brim, but it was fairly full. So that's good. Versus a panel that might, if that had been in a small panel room, not that there was one there, that would have been an issue. You know, things like that. But usually a fan con, one panel room I think is fine, one artist alley, maybe one little fun game room or like if it's a tabletop game, you have a table space where they can play tabletop. If it's a manga convention, maybe you have places where you can read manga, etc. That's really it. Have you ever done a fan convention? Have you ever been to a fan convention? Did you ever hear about MGS Con? Are you annoyed that you didn't go to Metal Gear Solid Con? Are you annoyed that I don't really care about Metal Gear Solid and I went to Metal Gear Solid Con? Let me know. Comment down below. A reminder that I stream on Twitch. Reminder that Swell Entertainment is now available on Spotify. A reminder to use code SWELL for 10% off on gamer subs. Shout out to my patrons. Thank you so much for supporting on Patreon. Join the YouTube channel. Memberships down below. I just want to know social media. That'll be all up here. And that's me to have all the day. Goodbye. Everyone say thank you to Matara for giving me her ticket and letting me go review a con. Thank you Adira, Amy, Andrew, Ayana, Cameron, Donnie, Elliot, Freya, Jeffrey, Jenny, Literal, May West, Michael, Nathan, Oz, Palace, Qwerty, Robert, Tasha, Tenzin, Thomas, Timothy, Winters, Wink.